Hey, this is Frank Nieto with Vision Quest Auto, and today we're going to be reviewing the 2025 Range Rover Evoque Dynamic SE, which is this vehicle. Range Rover is really known for making bigger vehicles, off-road worthy SUVs that are also very luxurious inside. This car is actually still luxurious. It's off-road capable, but what makes it different is its size. This is really pretty small. Um, it's technically listed as a compact SUV. In a lot of ways, I think this is more of Range Rover's car that they offer than an SUV, or maybe even closer to a wagon. It's not for everybody, and we'll go through that, and we're going to talk about whether this is the right car for you, whether you should buy this, what I like about this, what I don't like about this. We'll take it for a spin. So let's get to it. So the first thing you notice with the Range Rover Evoque is it really has the classic Range Rover looks, at least the classic Range Rover looks from, the past 10, 15 years or so. It's kind of soft shape, but still undeniable SUV. It kind of has actually a little bit of a Saab look, to be honest, now that I'm really taking a closer look at it. There's not a whole lot of changes that Range Rover's done to the Evoque over the years as far as styling. This is very reminiscent of the outgoing model, which was changed about 2 years ago. One thing that is different is right here. Those are pretty cool. Yes, little tweaks to it. It's a little bit of a softer look, like I said, a little bit more of that Saab kind of rounded look, a little bit more pronounced. It still has these on the hood, which kind of look like they're air intakes, but they're not at all. They're just designs. Dynamic SE, of course, comes with this Pirelli Scorpion Zero tires, and it's got, these black rims, which look really nice. Door handles, which get flush when you're driving, and of course, as you get closer, they pop out, which is pretty cool. It's a nice looking car. The rear seat. And we got a car seat in here. One thing that I've noticed is it does seem like there's a little bit more room than the last generation Evoque, and definitely far more room than the Evoque that had when I had that about 8 years ago or so. I had an Evoque as a test ride that I reviewed for was an Evoque convertible, which was really unique. It was a lot of fun, to be honest. It was not practical at all. This back seat space, as tight as this looks, and it's not too bad actually, but it basically cut this in half. That was the back seat for the Evoque convertible. And I'm going to show you, it got about 7 cubic feet with the roof up, and with the roof down, you got about 4 cubic feet. So not a whole lot of room. It was a cool little car. Cool convertibles, probably the most unique convertible I've ever driven, but Range Rover no longer makes that. I don't think it was too popular, but it got a lot of attention when I had it. This is a decent amount of cargo space. This is, of course, with the seats up, the rear seats up, and it's not bad. You can fit a good amount of, groceries in here, and, if you need to, the seats are easy enough to drop down. In a lot of ways, I'm going to talk about what I think this use case is, and why I think that Range Rover went ahead and made this. Now, materials quality is still very good. If you do notice, it's not quite as luxurious as, the top of the line, the actual Range Rover, or even, the Velar. But it's very good materials quality. There's a great feel to the steering wheel. All your controls are on this steering wheel for the most part. Your heated steering wheel, your cruise control functions, you can take a phone call on this, you can change your tracks, raise the volume, and they all have clicks. It's not on, but it's got a tactile feel, which I appreciate. Shifter's a little bit different than the Defender. Range Rover makes some weirder ones. If you remember in my review of the Defender, it had that weird kind of cane, maybe something else look to it. This one kind of reminds me of an Orelco shaver. It's fine. I mean, it feels comfortable in the hand. It's, it's a little bit odd looking, but It's nice. It's not in the way, but it's substantial enough that you can feel it. It's pretty good. You know, this is more muted than some other Range Rovers, which is the expected. This is the entry level Range Rover, but really comfortable leather. Feels real nice. I think that there is a cream color, and I think that this is very, very dark. Just for me, I would personally opt for getting a lighter, so a different color. It's a lot of black in here. It's very, very, very heavy charcoal. Start stop buttons right here, right on the dash. I like that clock's there. It's got an analog look to it. Oh, nice digital display. You have your Pivi Pro here, which is pretty standard. One of the things you may notice is, you know, most Range Rovers, when you get in here, there's physical controls for your different driving modes, your off-road modes, and if you notice, they're not here. One of the things that's interesting is they are in here. You know, you'll start to notice as you slide around on this screen outside of Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, you get all your, you know, your slope assist, your compass, your wheel info. It's got all this stuff, energy impact, driving style, right here in the driving mode. And here it is. I mean, it's basically auto. You got your off-road modes, and for the most part, if you notice, it's still pretty substantial for this kind of car, you know, for this car. But you got your comfort. It's locked into auto, so it's not out in the open. It is generally, you know, the same as what you get in a lot of Range Rovers. You got your gravel, snow. It's a little bit combined there, sand, mud ruts. So it's not bad. Your info here. It's got a lot in here. Your weight sensing, which is, I don't know how much people are going to be taking this one weighting, but hey, it's kind of nice. But I think that for the most part, since it's not out in the open, I really think that Range Rover has made this car for people, in my mind, what this car is looking at is for people who, for a car that's a luxury car, it has four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, I want to be able to get a little bit easier entry and exit out of the car, so a little bit higher up. They want to have, you know, some cargo space, but it's not their primary concern. You know, the second row capacity isn't a huge concern either for them. And they'd like something that's maybe a little bit taller than other cars on the road so they can see above them. I think this is made for either empty nesters or, you know, a couple that don't have a kid yet, or maybe just have a baby. It's decent in every way. It's one of those cars that it's fine. Especially you can get a Defender for the same amount. That's more off-road capable. It is not as comfortable a ride though. So, you know, you're trading that in. But when you compare this to other cars in the class, it doesn't quite match up on its own for what it is though. And that's the thing. I don't want to harp about what this isn't, how it compares to other cars in its class. But for what it is, it's a very solid car. But it's a tough recommendation when you factor in the rest of the automotive world. The one thing that's really interesting is the thing I like about this is your controls. There are no real physical controls here, but most of what you're using is right here in you know, easy access. You got your cameras, you got your different settings, which will bring up. Let me get that off there. Bring up all your devices. You know, you can change the car, all that kind of stuff, right? You got your drive modes there. You got your heated, you know, you got your temperature controls, which also bring up your heated, cooled seats. Actually, I guess it's just heated seats. Sorry, your heated seats, temperature controls, all that stuff, right? The thing is, and it's got Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. It's wireless. The thing is, it goes wonky. Right now, it says it's connected. I can't get it to. It just pops up this thing with everybody else's phones. I tell it to connect to my phone, it won't connect. If I disconnect, reconnect, it'll go on. It's a little wonky. Honestly, wireless CarPlay and auto has always been a little wonky. It seems like it's wonkier, if this makes sense, in this particular lineup more so than in other cars. Driving behind the wheel of the Evoque here, and it's what you would expect from a Range Rover. It's really smooth driving. Um, Not quite as smooth as, say, the full size Range Rover, or um, but it's right there. It's got a good ride, good handling. There's nothing really that stands out good or bad with this in particular. It is, it's got a smooth ride. You do feel some bumps in the road, like right there. It kind of went over some ice that was left over, but it's not terrible. Like I said, it's not quite as smooth as what you might find in, say, some Volvos or full-size Range Rover or Cadillac with the magnetic suspension, things like that. But you're getting a car that generally has refined handling. It's not jerking you around the road. It stays pointed in the direction you're looking at, turns well, has, strong accuracy, good maneuverability, which is expected considering how small this car is, how small the Evoque is. From a stop, it's got good acceleration. When you're on the highway, I'm obviously not on the highway right now, but I've had this on the highway. Merging into traffic, not a problem. Picking up speed, not a problem. The brakes are solid. Again, everything is a solid ride, but I wouldn't call it, you know, a driver's car. So that concludes our review for this week. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them. Just reach out, post a question either here on YouTube in the comments section or on Twitter X, where you can find us under the handle Vision Quest A. Of course, on YouTube, we're under the handle Vision Quest Auto. So for Vision Quest Auto, this has been Frank Nieto, and I'll catch you around.